Hey, Pretty Girl Club. I wanted to do a psychoanalysis on the preference to baby mama pipeline because one of the main talking points I see from pick me unambiguous black women on YouTube is that preferences, aka us, become baby mamas, and somehow that puts baby mamas at the bottom. But we all know that that is statistically false because if you look at the average baby mama lifestyle of unambiguous black women, it is more adjacent to women like Monique from Precious versus the average quote unquote baby mama lifestyle of a preference. It is more similar to somebody like Drea, Halle Bailey, or even if these are not famous women, a lot of quote unquote preferences who have children, they still have the same, if not more, dating and level up options than their unambiguous counterparts, according to Black Women Empowerment Space's own talking points. The majority of these single mothers in the black community who are getting abandoned and struggling with poverty are usually unambiguous women. And we know this because the majority of the black community is obviously unambiguous. They are brown to dark skin with type 4 hair and broad facial features. If you don't believe me, go to Cynthia G's channel and you will see her agreeing with my talking points. The majority of single mothers in the black community, they are unambiguous women who got into these 50-50 relationships or these hypogamous types of relationships, and then they end up getting abandoned by these black men. Or if they are unambiguous black women who are divestors or swirlers, and they kind of promote that, even if these women are famous divestors like Queen of Kings, you will see them in more of these domestic violence situations. If you don't believe me, go on the Black Empowerment content creators' YouTube channels and you will hear them talking about black femicide. You will hear them talking about how the most likely to unalive a black woman is usually some sort of black man. I don't see those same statistics about multiracial women, about quote unquote light-skinned women, or about these quote unquote preferences. And if you guys look at the last story time that I just uploaded where there was a preference, there was an exotical who is a single mother, and she actually talked about how a lot of married women in a mom group were jealous of her. And I really feel like this dynamic is not talked about enough. This social dynamic isn't talked about because let's talk about the majority of marriages. The majority of marriages are 50-50. The majority of women who are married on YouTube creating content for black women, those women are in 50-50 relationships. We've already looked up the statistics on men in the United States, and I will pull up screenshots to prove my point. In the US, the median annual salary for men is $65,312. So the average black woman who's married, making content on YouTube, talking about preferences to baby mamas, her husband most likely makes around $65,000. Let's go ahead and look up that statistic for the average black man in the United States. So as of February 2025, it says the average annual salary for an African American man is $79K, which is above average. Isn't that interesting? First of all, I've noticed a lot of women, they call black men dusties or broke or whatever. So why is it that the black guy is only a dusty if he dates a quote unquote preference? But then you've got these married black women who are literally married to black men trying to down talk on single mothers as if their relationship is a prize. And I will say $79K as an average salary, that's not bad, but it's also not rich. So a lot of content creators making content about these women who are getting pregnant by NBA players and stuff, those women are still living better lifestyles than the content creator making the videos. Those women are still getting more checks each month than the woman making the videos. And I've noticed this dynamic where a lot of black women who are married to black men have this fixation and obsession and internalized jealousy against women that they consider to be preferences. Hence why they call us preferences. What they're saying is that unambiguous black women are not preferred. So it's that same talking point of black women are at the bottom, so they're actually implying based on their own video titles that unambiguous black women are not a preference. When they use the term preference, are they talking about a dark-skinned black woman? No, they're not. So if you're a dark-skinned black woman watching that kind of content, you're actually receiving the subliminal messaging that you are not the quote-unquote preference. And by the way, the word preference literally means that you get preferred treatment. So if you are calling someone a preference and then you're trying to make content about how they're not getting preferential treatment, that content contradicts itself and the title actually contradicts itself. So it's like, which one is it? Do preferences exist or not? Does colorism, texturism, or featureism exist or not? Because if the isms exist, then that would mean that people do, in fact, get preferential treatment. And a lot of these exotical baby mamas, you're acting like them having a child takes away their light skin privilege, their pretty privilege, their hair texture privilege, their facial feature privilege, or whatever it is that they were benefiting off of in society. But see, when you're extremely black male centered, you start to take on the same talking points as a lot of black red pill men, which is, oh, you hit the wall, somehow you're worthless if you have a child. And the majority of black men who are watching that content have children and have baby mamas. And they date baby mamas, and they lust after baby mamas, and they subscribe to the OnlyFans of baby mamas, and they listen to the music of these baby mamas. And they go to the strip club, and they log on to porn sites so that they can please themselves to these baby mamas. So it's like you guys are talking about single mothers, yet you are going to strip clubs so you can watch those single mothers slide down a pole. You guys are going on to dating apps so that you can connect with these quote-unquote baby mothers. You guys are complaining about OnlyFans girls who are richer than you, and these OnlyFans girls are baby mothers. So do you see this mental illness that is rampant in the black community? And it's like, well, which one is it? Do you value single mothers or not? Because in the black community, Mother's Day is a highly reverenced day. A lot of people do not celebrate Father's Day, so don't try to come onto YouTube and suddenly pretend like you care about fatherhood when we know that culturally in the African American community, they completely devalue Father's Day because they have this stereotype that a lot of black men are extremely dusty and they abandon their children. So why would you then turn around and get upset or try to shame a woman for not abandoning her child? Because single mothers, there are women who do actually abandon their children. They drop them off at the fire station. They don't want anything to do with them. So it's like, why would you then turn around and try to bash those women who actually chose to stay? She's the parent that chose to stay. Why is it that when it comes to unambiguous black women, you want to protect them? And people will be like, well, the black mother, she's the one who actually raised the kid. She's the one who chose to stay. Don't shame her for doing that. Don't shame her for leaving a bad relationship. Don't shame her for ending her marriage. But then you can't keep the same energy when a woman is a quote-unquote preference. Why? It's because deep down inside, a lot of the married women who are talking crap about these quote-unquote preference baby mamas, these are women who are living lifestyles that don't even compare to these quote-unquote baby mamas. They are living a life where their pedestal that they have, it's not the same as Drea or as, I don't know, I'm trying to think of random baby mamas. Like, it's not the same as like these women who are having babies by NBA players. It's not the same as Danny Lay. It's not the same as these types of women because all of these women that they're talking about in these videos, they're forgetting that these women are still celebrities. They still have pretty privilege. They have tens of thousands of followers. They get tens of thousands of dollars per month. They've got brand deals. And it's like, okay, so if her lifestyle is so leveled down and if being a baby mama completely destroys your worth, what's the difference between you and your counterparts over in the red pill space? What's the difference between the two of you? Do you see what I mean? How a lot of times black women and black men are actually two sides of the same coin. Because the preference to baby mama pipeline talking point, that's no different than the you hit the wall talking point. And I told you guys a lot of black women will actually utilize red pill talking points to humble exoticals. They will tell us, oh, if you have a baby, your value goes down. So essentially you hit the wall. They will say you age badly, which is implying the same thing, which is you hit the wall. Or they will say things like, you should have chose better. And it's like, okay, well, her choosing to be single and leaving the abusive guy, that is her choosing better because she's choosing herself. She's choosing the safety of her children. You guys shamed that one girl for staying married to that black guy that SA'd her kids. I can't remember her name. I think it's the trophy wife. You guys shamed her for staying in the marriage, but then you want to shame other exoticals for leaving their bad marriages and relationships. And then you want to say, oh, you went from preference to baby mama. So do you see how whenever you are the privileged woman in comparison to unambiguous women, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you stay married, then you're just a pick-me, you're desperate, you didn't see the red flags. But then if you leave, and become a single mother, then suddenly it's, oh, well, preference to baby mama, shoulda chose better. Oh, well, she still couldn't keep him. She couldn't keep a man. Okay, these are all red pill talking points. Another thing I want to point out is that happily married women who are enjoying their relationships, they don't keep up with the relationships of single women. They're not obsessing over what single women are doing, what quote unquote preferences are doing, who's the preference, who's not the preference, how did her relationship turn out? Let me follow the timeline of her relationship for the past 5 years. Let me see who her man cheated on her with. What kinds of women did he cheat on her with? No. Women who are happily married and happily leveled up with their kangs, their unambiguous black men that they're married to, if they're so happy, why would they be concerned about what single women are doing? Whether she has a child or not, why would they care? Like if I'm enjoying my marriage, if I'm enjoying my life, if I have such a leveled up relationship and I'm living such a soft life, why would I be tracking and comparing the lifestyles of other women to my own? I wouldn't be doing that. I wouldn't even know who these people are. Like sometimes I will see videos pop up on my algorithm and it'll be some woman that I've never even heard of. It'll be some exotical I've never heard of. So a lot of times women are actually contributing to the fame and success and notoriety of these quote unquote baby mama preferences. You're actually making them more of a quote unquote preference by causing them to become more famous because you're making videos about them. We all know from a cultural standpoint that a lot of unambiguous black women have had the tendency to be quote unquote black male worshipers. If you don't believe me, go and watch black empowerment content creators and you'll hear them talking about that. So I've noticed a pattern where the main content creators who talk so much about what quote unquote preferences or exoticals are doing with their bodies, usually these are extremely male-centered women. In fact, that's actually a male-centered insult. Oh, you went from a preference to a baby mama. That's a male-centered insult because you're saying that you went from preference, you're preferred in the male gaze, that puts you at the top, and then you went to being a baby mama. So you got dumped by a man or you got left by a man, so now you're at the bottom. Do you see how that's male-centered? So your whole entire value is tied to how a man treats you. Your whole entire social status in these women's eyes is tied to the type of man you can attract. And oftentimes, if you look at these women, they really will be these married women who are into more of this pick-me type of mindset. And they'll be in these 50-50 relationships. They'll be in hypogamous relationships. They'll be married to a bandit. They'll be married to a dusty bandit and then say that you were a baby mama to a bandit. And it's like, okay, even if these women who are getting pregnant, even if they are baby mamas to these quote-unquote dusty guys, these women got compensated for that. And I'm not saying that you should go out and just get pregnant by these guys, but at least those women got compensated. They're getting paid $10K a month. They're getting paid $20K a month. How much is your husband paying you per month? What kind of lifestyle and socioeconomic status do you have? Because clearly it must not be that much. And this is why I know that a lot of women who are married are still married single mothers. Being married does not guarantee that the guy is just going to treat you like a queen and all this other stuff. Not to mention the fact that if it's a woman who's married to an everyday guy, we just saw the statistics. Most guys make less than $100K in the United States. So her lifestyle that she's living is not going to be a six-figure lifestyle, let alone a millionaire lifestyle. The women that these people are talking about in their videos, these women are actually famous. These women are actually millionaires or they are worth multiple six figures. So this baby mama is worth more than your husband. And this is why I say that a lot of content you see online is pure projection because a lot of women who are married single mothers, they're unhappily married because if they were happily married, they would not be so concerned about the relationship status of other women. They certainly wouldn't be concerned about the relationship status of quote unquote 304s or quote unquote whores or, women that they view as loose women. They wouldn't even be concerned about that, right? Because they'd be too busy enjoying being a trad wife. So this is why I say that I would never take advice from someone I wouldn't trade lives with because they'll talk all this crap about women being preferences to baby mamas, but then they never give you an example of what a proper relationship should look like. And they damn sure don't bring their personal relationship onto the internet and use themselves as an example, but they have so much to say about everybody else's relationship status, so much to say about women who happen to have a baby and they weren't married. They've got so much to say about that. They've got such strong beliefs and core values regarding marriage, but you never see them coming online with their husbands talking about their marriage. You sure don't. You know why? Because if you did, then you would be exposed for your husband being quote unquote average at best. So you know how they try to make it like Exoticals are average at best? No, your spouse is most likely average at best. Which is why you see a lot of these women obsessing over who Exoticals are dating or not dating, who we are married to or not married to, devaluing us for not being married, because that's how male-centered they are. Your value and worth rests in your marital status. As if those black women saying that weren't raised by single mothers in a lot of cases. They'll be like, oh, well, she couldn't keep a man. Bitch, your mama and your grandmama couldn't keep a man, according to your own talking points. So do you see the hypocrisy? They can dish it out, but they can't take it back. It's only bad if you're a quote-unquote preference and you happen to be single. It's only bad if you're a quote-unquote preference and you get a divorce. But then it's also bad if you're a preference and you stay married to a guy who has abusive tendencies. That's also bad, like in the case of the trophy wife. So it's like, what are these women supposed to do? What are the preferences supposed to do? If they're with a guy and then they realize after they've already had the child that they don't want to be with the guy, what are they supposed to do? What is the solution? Do you see how a lot of these YouTube channels, they are just literally focused on comparing themselves to us as opposed to offering solution-centered talking points to their own audiences? There's no solution anywhere in any of the content. Nothing positive, nothing empowering to the subscribers or anything. Also, how is it empowering to black women to down talk on other women's relationship status? I don't understand how that's empowering. Oh, well, you should feel empowered as an unambiguous woman because these preferences, they get treated bad. They get treated like they're at the bottom, just like you. Is that supposed to be empowering? And for the people who say stuff like, oh, I'm just watching it for entertainment. Okay, well, that proves my other talking point, which is that a lot of black women are entertained by seeing MLS women suffer. And I've talked about this. This is why they like watching baddies. This is why they love watching Love and Hip Hop. They like watching Real Housewives. They like watching content creators like Ekane because they enjoy seeing these quote unquote preferences being abused. They enjoy trauma bonding. For a lot of women, the only way they can relate to you is via a trauma bond. And we've talked about this a lot, which is why a lot of women, they don't like the exotical space because this space is not built on trauma bonding. And so that's what causes them to follow people. That's what causes them to like watching some of these quote unquote preferences. They love seeing them get knocked upside the head. They love seeing them get cheated on or abused or, being in a love triangle or something. They love seeing them get knocked between the washer and dryer because it makes them feel better about their life. It makes them feel better about the fact that they got knocked between the washer and dryer because they feel like, hey, at least I'm not suffering alone. Misery loves company. That's basically what that type of content is. If people are revolving a lot of their content or channels or talking points around the suffering of another group and then comparing their dating lives to like their own dating lives, but then they don't want to show their dating life. They just want to pretend like they have a really good dating or marriage life. It's giving coping mechanism. A lot of these YouTube channels are literally just an emotional coping mechanism for downtrodden black women with inferiority complexes. And they're hoping that by bashing or trash talking the privileged people, that it will make them feel better. It's very similar to how poor people talk shit about rich people. They'll talk all this shit about rich people. They'll have so many negative things to say, but then they will go play the lottery. They will go and try to get a promotion at their jobs. So I've noticed the same dynamic with a lot of unambiguous women with inferiority complexes. They talk shit about quote unquote preferences, yet they themselves will go and do their hair, do their makeup, lose weight so that they themselves can become somebody's preference, whether he's black or not. So you're talking shit about preferences, but you were the preference of your own husband, obviously. So you yourself are a preference in the eyes of another man. So why is it okay for you to be a preference in the eyes of your husband, but it's not okay for a woman to be a preference in the eyes of an NBA player? Do you see the hypocrisy? Do you see the double standard? So it's okay for unambiguous black women to be preferred by white men in the divestment space. It's okay for them to be preferred by their husbands, but it's suddenly not okay if you're an exotical and you're preferred by anyone. That's not okay. because whoever the guy is, he's obviously self-hating, or, you're not white enough for him. You know how they say your white side won't accept you? So that white husband that you married, if you're a mixed woman, he really wanted a white girl. He didn't want a mixed girl. He only married you because he didn't have access to the fully white women. So do you see how it's a double standard? No matter what you do as a quote unquote preference, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You get shamed for being married. You get shamed for being divorced. You get shamed for being a single mother. You get shamed for not having children. So my question to the Black empowerment space is, what is the proper way for quote unquote preferences to have romantic lives or to go through relationships and breakups? What's the proper way for us to exist? Because it seems like no matter what we do, you're always going to find a way to talk shit. And this is why I tell Exoticals, you should just do what you want. Because even if you are a single mother, having a baby, it doesn't cancel out your other privileges. I feel like for a lot of unambiguous women who have inferiority complexes, maybe that was their only privilege in terms of like the dating market. Their only privilege was being a virgin or being unmarried or being child free or, not being a baby mama. Maybe that was their only privilege that they had, or they viewed that as a privilege. So then once that was lost, they viewed themselves as not having any more privileges because they didn't have other privileges stacked on top of it. Here in the exotical space, we talk a lot about the concept of privilege stacking. And I can tell you that every single person I've ever seen on one of these videos where it's like, oh, look at her, she got cheated on. That woman, she has way more privileges than simply getting picked by an NBA player. Some of us are not completely male-centered. We don't view everything revolving around whether or not some NBA player wants you. So a lot of these women, even if they do break up with their rapper boyfriends and stuff, she still has plenty of other privileges that she can enjoy, including wealth privilege, because in a lot of cases, these women are better at choosing men with money, or they have more access or more quote unquote options, according to your own talking points, according to unambiguous women's talking points. The quote unquote preferences have more dating options, and they have the ability to attract more high earning men. And we see that they believe this because they follow content creators like Shira7. They put content creators like Shira7 on a pedestal and turn her into a dating guru, even though Shira7 has said dozens of times she is not a relationship channel. Her channel is not a romantic relationship channel. But because exoticals are the standard of dating, and they want to pretend like we're not, we are the standard of dating. Otherwise, they wouldn't be making videos about our relationships. They wouldn't even care what our relationships are because we're not the standard. I don't see them making videos about Gabby Sidibe's dating status. I didn't see them making a whole bunch of videos about Jodie Turner-Smith and Lupita Nyong'o and how Lupita Nyong'o picked up Jodie Turner-Smith's leftovers. I didn't see them talking about that. You know why? Because unambiguous women are not their standard for dating. They want to know about the Lori Harveys. They want to know about the women who benefit from featureism and what types of dating lives they have. They want to know about the women who benefit from colorism and what types of dating lives they have. They want to know about the women who benefit from texturism or mixed race privilege and focus on them. You know why? Because exoticals are the standard of dating. And this is why you will always see unambiguous women on YouTube placing a microscope on our dating lives. And I'm not talking about people who make one or two videos. No, I'm talking about the women that you see where it's like almost every talking point of their video is focused on relationship, is focused on how to get a man, how to get a boyfriend, how to get a husband, how to make a man take you seriously. And it's like, well, first of all, these are basic femininity things that you should have been taught as a child. Oh, what? But you were raised by a single mother? The same status that you shame quote unquote preferences for having, being single mothers? Weren't you raised by a single mother? And if it wasn't you, wasn't your mama raised by a single mother? Your aunties, your cousins, your half siblings? So do you keep the same energy with them, or is this energy only directed towards quote unquote preferences? But what do you ladies think? Have you ever had a married single mother be jealous of you as a single mother who happens to still have pretty privilege? You still have all your other privileges. So being a single mother, it didn't destroy your social status like how it destroys other women's social status? What do you ladies think? Let me know in the comments section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.